Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am Amanda.
I'm Laura.
Kendra.
And today is a special day. We have Laura's favorite ding, 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 Tony Overbay. Laura, take it away.
Yay. If you haven't heard our previous 2 episodes with Tony, go back and check those out. Please check out his stuff as well. He is my favorite podcaster of many favorite podcasts, but he is my very most favorite podcaster. So we're thrilled to have him with us. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he has a lot of other titles, including multi-podcaster and course developer and ultra marathoner and dad and husband, and he's awesome. And I consider him to be one of the world's leading experts on narcissism. Just feeding that healthy ego, Tony.
Okay, I hope it's the healthy ego. Sometimes after the bio reading, I'm like, man, that sounds kind of narcissistic. I'm not going to lie.
Dude,
You know?
like,
It's true.
Just
Yeah.
checking it.
And we're grateful for you, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Super grateful for you. So his narcissism podcast is Waking Up to Narcissism. And I was telling him yesterday that I just recommended it to one of our clients a couple of weeks ago, and she just started listening to it, and she said, oh, this is my life. And so anyway, can't recommend that one enough. So thank you so much for being here with us, Tony. We're so excited.
I love coming on with you guys. It's I don't know. I do listen to the podcast, and usually I have very nice things to say about you. And I don't. I have been a little bit behind, so I feel like I just want to give you just a overall. Keep doing the work you're doing. You gave me a literal PhD in gaslighting, and that's what was my dream.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I talk about
That's
it
your
all the
bio.
time. Absolutely.
What
Yes.
was PhD in gaslighting? He has a
Right.
certificate to prove it.
Yes.
Yeah,
means a
Laura
lot to
made
me.
it all up and it's all official now.
It looks very
Straight from Canva.
Yeah. Is that a university in Canada? I'm not familiar.
For
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So today we're
Yeah.
talking about narcissism in medicine. You doctors, you're gonna be surprised. You're gonna be surprised by some revelations you have today, I think.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, thank you, Tony, so much. We are so excited you're here, but can you give us a quick reminder about this narcissism/emotional immaturity for those listeners who may not have grasped this concept yet?
Yeah. And it's interesting, Kendra. I will start by one of my new favorite concepts is I've really been deep diving on the concept of differentiation, which is it really is this ability. We have this conflicting or competing desire to have a connection with somebody, but also to maintain our autonomy or kind of find our own way. And so that's part of the maturing process. So I think when you kind of even just look at things like that, it's being able to then figure out who I am in a relationship. And I think that so much of what we do is centered around avoiding our discomfort. You know, we're wired to get rid of discomfort. And so then when you look at it in that context of we're in relationships, we're going to be uncomfortable when we hear that our spouse thinks that we have done something or they have a different opinion and we never knew that about them. And all of a sudden we think, oh my gosh, that means that they're completely different and changed, or if they have an opinion, that means that they must think mine's wrong. And so I think there's a lot of that emotional immaturity. And so when you talk about differentiation, and this is where I would just love to, as somebody is starting to listen to what we're going to talk about today, if it makes them uncomfortable and they are finding themselves going, yeah, but he's never heard my wife, or whatever, then that's the part where it's like, oh, why was that uncomfortable? Because a lot of times that discomfort is, well, not even a lot. I want people to buy into growth is from discomfort. And so that's where then because there's 2 directions you can go. If somebody says, I think that you are, I don't know, I think that you're pretty egotistical and you only think about yourself, and how dare they, oh yeah, well you do, very mature response that you can say, or okay, fine. Why don't you tell me what else to do and just take my money? I mean, all those kind of the greatest hits. But I think that if it's like the reality with differentiation is, okay, that makes me uncomfortable. That's a me thing. And now what do I do with that discomfort? Am I uncomfortable because there's some truth there? Am I uncomfortable because, oh my gosh, that's how they feel that I've been in the relationship, but I don't feel that way. So maybe we can have a conversation about it. So there's that growth that happens through discomfort. And I just want to put that out there because I think that this could be a episode where there could be a lot of yeah buts. Yeah, but this guy doesn't understand. Yeah, but he's never been in the operating room. Yeah, but and so then, and I haven't. But the differentiation concept is pretty universal. And okay, I won't go on too many tangents because I'm going to get to narcissism, emotional maturity, and I'm going to throw a little nice guy syndrome in there too. But I've been working on I love origin stories. That's the only superhero movies I like. And so I've got one here because why do we want to get rid of our discomfort? And I really think that it goes back to when, even a good parent, just a average parent, we still feel like our job is to teach our kids right from wrong. And so, and a kid is just walking around being a kid, first time in their life, and they're just doing things. But I think the majority of the messaging that we hear as kids is, hey, not now, don't do that. We don't say that. Stand up. Don't yell at your brother. Tuck your shirt in. It wasn't a big deal. And so I almost feel like over time, we do that to be like, okay, got rid of my discomfort. I'm a good parent. I just told them what to do. Okay, we good? I can go about my business. And then the kid starts to feel like, okay, so everything I do apparently is wrong. Because if I have an emotion, I'm told, calm down. Or, but what did you do to deserve that? Or how do you think they felt? Or again, even the nice parent is like, hey, it's you don't need to worry about that. So then I'm like, okay, I am worrying about it. So apparently I'm doing me wrong. So then, I think we start to feel like, okay, so the things I think and the things I say must be wrong. So then I think that we internalize our emotions as kids. And now, welcome to the world of, I need external validation. I need somebody to tell me the right way to do it, the wrong way to do it. And so that's where I feel like I work with doctors, I work with attorneys, I work with politicians. I get to work with these high-end people that are still coming to my office and saying, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this wrong, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I've also been exploring a little bit more of even that concept of right and wrong. I'm not saying, from a morality standpoint, but is a bit of a hindsight principle, because if I do something and people say, oh, I like that. Oh, I guess I did it right. And if I do something and they're like, I don't know if I like that. And I'm like, did I do it wrong? But I could do the same thing, and depending on my audience, now all of a sudden I'm thinking I did it right or wrong. And so I am on a tangent, I know. But then I think that's the part. So apparently our emotions and us being us we've been taught that that's a bad thing. And then if we express our emotions and it makes somebody else uncomfortable, what does that person do? Hey, you need to calm down, or I can't have this conversation if you're in that state. So even as adults, we're thinking, okay, I'm not doing this right. So I got to calm myself down. But now I get in an interaction with somebody, and I wonder how much of this plays out in things like medicine as well, where if somebody does have a different opinion, are they allowed to say it? Or are they so afraid that this might be the wrong thing? But I think I know what I'm talking about. And in preparation for talking to you guys, I was talking with someone who spends a lot of time in the operating room. I feel like I don't want to rat anybody out, but I love talking to this population. And they were talking about sometimes that they do see that something is happening that there's probably a better way to do it, but they're in a lower pecking order. And so they were saying that depending on who they're working with, is how comfortable they feel in bringing something up. I don't know. I know I haven't even answered your question, but I'm curious, is that a thing? Do you guys see that?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
So then take that into bringing that in from our childhood, adolescence, even as adults. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know if I should say this. And then that's where I think, well, yeah, if that's what you think. I mean, it would be nice if it was a safe environment where people could say, hey, you want to double check that? Or are you sure about that? But then I wonder if anybody listening right now is like, well, yeah, but I have seconds. So it's life and death and that sort of thing. And say, okay, on that one, no problem. But if it's not that case, and that's where I don't know what it's like to be in an operating room or anything like that. And Kendra, you're kind of smiling. I'm curious, do you have like stories that come up for you with that, or examples or thoughts?
Oh, yes. I mean, in the emergency department, everyone resounds with that. The consultants that you're going to call, and you're going to get a pleasant interaction that you feel like you are delivering information. They're on the same wavelength. Everything is, receiving, accepting, that kind of thing. It's validating, wrap up. There we go. And then, the consultants that you're going to call, and they go, as soon as you say the diagnosis, they go from 0 to 60. We were just talking about this actually. And then a consultant that I called, and like unexpectedly, when I've never spoken with him before, but he went from 0 to 60 real quick. And I just paused, and I was like, tell me more about this.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, because I think
More.
the fascinating thing is like, from a differentiated standpoint, in theory, everything is an opportunity. If it's all a me thing, then it's my opportunity to self-confront and grow. So if I know that it's fair for me to ask a question and this person loses their mind, that is a them thing. And so then, okay, now I have learned that that is not someone that I probably need to, that I probably don't need to go ask questions with anymore. And so it's almost like, okay, thank you for the information. And part of this, and then I really am going to answer your question too. I have it over here. I had a couple notes here. But so now trusting, that immaturity, I think is really about that emotional reactivity and the I can't be wrong. And how dare you think you know something that I don't? Because, when we're talking narcissism is, and some of these are going to feel like they're similar. That's the inflated sense of self-importance. And this, I continually need admiration. I need attention. That can come with a side order of not having as much empathy for others. And then people in that scenario will find themselves often in troubled relationships because they just run through people. And so then that often comes with also feeling like they deserve special treatment. And then I think what is really fascinating is the narcissist, and this also creeps into the emotionally immature, have a real fragile self-esteem. And, when Lori, you're talking about the healthy ego, that's a concept that I really talk about a lot, because healthy ego is based on real life experience. And part of having the healthy ego is, I know what I know because it is part of the work that I've done. But then the cool part about that is that means I also can now acknowledge the things I don't know that I don't know. And that makes me more of a fun hang, because now I'm curious about things. And if I don't know something, I can actually say I don't know. And I find that, when you're looking at narcissism and right on those narcissistic traits and severe emotional immaturity, the person thinks, okay, if I don't know something, then all of a sudden you're going to think you're better than me. So I'm going to make something up. And then now they can tell you that you're wrong, because they just won't deal with that discomfort of the potential that they may not know something or might get something wrong. And then, there's the impulsivity and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And it's interesting because a lot of times then narcissists and emotionally immature people, then when they feel emotionally overwhelmed, now they really struggle with that capacity to turn to others to not to soothe them, but to communicate. Here comes the role of therapy, coaching, that sort of thing. Because they feel like, well, what does this person know? And if I kind of stay in that world of what does this person know, well, then I never have to actually do it. And then you can see where it takes a lot of vulnerability and a lot of discomfort to come in and talk to somebody about things that frustrate them. But it's a lot easier to just say, well, no, it's that other person's fault. Or, okay, fine, I won't ever do it again. And the reason I like that concept is because now we're back into that world of how do I get rid of my discomfort? I said I'll never do it again. So now if you don't say my hero, then they get to say, okay, apparently you don't trust me, you don't believe me. And so they can just find themselves just repeating these same cycles over and over again, because I said I get it, and when I'm working with couples, a lot of times I want to follow that up with, well, tell me more about what you get or what you understand, because, the response is kind of surface level. But so, and then emotional immaturity, I think that's the one, if you really start thinking about this, of a place where the person hasn't really developed the emotional capacity to deal with discomfort, to deal with complexities of adult life. And if you've really find yourself, you can be really good in one area, and then it's hard to admit that I maybe don't know things about another area. And so then lacking the emotional capacity, then I'm going to lash out when anybody criticizes me, and I think that also has that impulse control, lack of empathy. And I really feel like the difference becomes more of, the grandiose narcissist they won't even engage at times because they just know they are better than. And this is why I think that we run into emotional immaturity more often, because that person, I almost want to call it, they struggle with a frustration tolerance. And then that leads to the impulsivity. Because if I can quickly dismiss somebody, get angry, or leave a room or whatever, then I've controlled that situation. I've alleviated my discomfort and I feel better. But, they've left a room full of people in their wake. And then the last one, and I won't even spend much time on this one, I think I also, because I don't know if you guys see this in medicine or not, but the whole nice guy syndrome, I mean, that's almost like people that believe they're entitled of certain outcomes, like, romantic interest, reciprocated feelings, because they are so nice. So they struggle with expressing their needs directly. And so they are very passive aggressive. it's almost like they become overly agreeable to then get people to like them. But then there's a concept there called a covert contract, where it's like, if I do these things, then that person will reciprocate and they will love me, but I'm not going to tell them because I shouldn't have to. And so then when they don't do it, I get to say they don't care about me, what's wrong with me. And then so I got to double down and do more for people. Is that a thing in your world? The nice guy syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah, it's
think we
like,
see more of the overt, and then
Okay.
we see like some codependence, some human magnet syndrome
I-
happening there.
Yeah.
I do think that there are some docs that really get a whole lot of external validation from work being the go-to that all the patients love, and then when they go home, it's a different situation. I do think that that's a little bit. I don't know if that's what you're talking about or
Well,
not,
I
but
mean, I
I do
like
find
that
that
one.
interesting.
Yeah. And this, I did a training earlier with a lot of people, a lot of moms. It's a mother's group. And it wasn't about narcissism or emotional maturity, but it kind of went in that direction. And someone in the comments said, my husband's a surgeon. And she said, I have to continually remind him I'm not his nurse. And then another person chimed in there and said, yeah, just because he can make all these decisions at work doesn't mean that he is owed the same, tolerance at home, because it's like, hey, look, this is what I do all the time at work. And I feel like that, again, we can form into that. How do I'm making an excuse? How do I get rid of my discomfort? Well, this is what I do at work. And that's where, and as a couples therapist, I want to say, man, okay, I'll accept that. I think we talked my 4 pillars back in the day. I'm going to assume some good intentions there. I'm not going to say that's ridiculous, even if I think so. And I'll kind of ask more questions about it. And then, but then if you're dealing with somebody that has a low distress tolerance, then they just have so many ways to get out of that situation. Fine, I'll never bring it up again, or, okay, you sure don't appreciate me, because then they quickly, and this goes into that human magnet syndrome. I think so often that's where the emotionally mature narcissists find themselves with the pathologically kind, because then if they can diffuse their anger into the relationship, then they know that person's going to make them feel better. So they're requiring that other person to validate them, to soothe them, instead of them self-soothing or self-validating. That was a long answer.
Awesome. So much gold.
Okay. All right, where do we go next?
Yeah. I can't. Tell me more. No, just what is it like to be in the system of narcissistic abuse? We've alluded to this because you so kindly, Tony, say, is that there in the medical field? Yes. Just assume yes.
Okay.
But Laura loves to say that we are in this narcissistic system of abuse as far as in the medical training system. So as we come up through medical school residency and new attendings, we're constantly in this situation where we're like probably not aware at first of the programming or this narcissistic system of abuse. So how about you kind of help us to understand or recognize?
Well, have we talked about the concept of a trauma bond yet? Have we talked about that with you guys?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I think this one, tell me what you think about this, because the more that I'm aware of what the trauma bond is, it comes from the work of this psychologist. It was Skinner, who did some stuff with rats and intermittent reinforcement. And this was the quick overview of it was, you have these rats that can push levers and get a reward. And so then they just had it intermittently. Sometimes they push it, they get rewards. Sometimes they wouldn't. And then eventually they say, okay, let's have no reward, but the lever. And I think the initial thoughts around the study were, how long does it take for them to just stop pushing the lever? But these guys go nuts and they, push the lever to basically to their detriment and their death. And so then it kind of led to this work around intermittent reinforcement, which is the same person or entity that gives you the punishment also gives you the reward. And that creates the trauma bond. And so then it really is like an addiction at that point. And so when you have people that are in these narcissistic relationships and they're trying to get out of them, I mean, it is so difficult to have them know that they are okay as they are, because as soon as they kind of start to have that withdrawal, or they call it the narcissistic discard, now they feel like, okay, I need basically a hit of dopamine from the person that can deliver me the reward. But then every time they go back into that trauma bond, they're given more punishment to go along with that reward. So there's a part of me almost feels like, is that like what that system may look like?
Well, the interesting thing is like there's not much in terms of reward, and yet we still stay in it. Like it's like constant
Interesting.
focus on negative. You're totally always
Is it really?
messing up. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reward is just the external validation. Like we're
That's why I was
seeking
curious,
that
Kendra.
approval from our attendings, and we're seeking the approval from all those that, whoever service we're on or whoever, we're just constantly needing that. Like, am I doing everything right? Am I showing up early? Am I going home late? Am I doing that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think got it.
Like it's such small doses of positive reinforcement that they give and work with this. There's just so much.
I mean,
Negative. That's so interesting.
like instead of all or nothing for sure. I mean, like, there's a paycheck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We definitely get a paycheck. From time to time, somebody will say something nice. I think we get hooked early on because we're told like we're so special to get accepted to med school in the first place because thousands of people apply.
That's the love bombing.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. And Amanda,
And
I
you
think
get
you're
in,
spot
but
on.
then you're stuck. And then you've got sunk cost fallacy. And then that's when it can really get abusive, I think. But
Okay, so I don't want to offend anyone. I'm just bringing gentle awareness to because I've worked with. I mean, I think I'm currently seeing 4 or 5 doctors, a handful of attorneys, captains of industry, and I've been saying this more and more lately with humor, of course, but no one really probably knows what they're going to do when they're 14 or 15 or 16. So the person that says I'm going to be a doctor, immediate validation, external validation. The parents proud. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're going to be successful. And they're like, yes, I am. And so then I have found more and more that when I am working with people that are in the medical profession, that I'm getting them in their mid 30s, early 40s, and they're saying, okay, I would like to be the guy that maybe washes the uniforms, or I might I love the way that the guy makes the hamburgers and the grill. I didn't know that when I was 14, but now I've got $500,000 in student loans. And then I like that intermittent reinforcement of the, doctor. And so there's a part of it that feels like doctors, attorneys, anybody that committed young and early got that validation early. And at some point it's like, because I mean, I was 10 years in computer software and then went back to school, got my master's in counseling 20 years later, greatest move of my life. But nobody was like, oh, you're going to be an amazing software salesman. Because because I didn't know what I want to do. I would have taken a different job out of college. That was the crapshoot theory. But then you find what you really like. And that's just where I feel like no one really knows what they want to do young, in my opinion. But I don't know. You guys are all shaking your head. I'm so curious. Yeah.
I think also add into that, the people that get attracted to medicine in the first place are very altruistic. It's not the best way to make. So then I feel like I could be wrong. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that we are set up almost to just be ushered into almost that codependent, even though I do not identify as a codependent at all. But I wanted so badly to like make a difference, and then got in this system that it was like, well, you're going to have to sacrifice even more and even more. And now with less. And I was like, well, how did I even get here? I don't even know how that happened. But dang it.
I want to hear, and man, it's interesting because I do find, and I like that you mentioned earlier to not want to look at this as an all or nothing situation.
Yeah.
Because even this person I'm talking about, one of my favorite clients in the world is this person in the medical profession who I think got into it for those reasons. But then I also find that I have plenty of the ones that got into it, I think, for the prestige, for the money.
Ooh,
and then, right? And I could do a whole
100%,
thing on the absolute power corrupts and why it does. And you're surrounded by a bunch of yes men and nobody is going to say anything negative. And now we talked like earlier about, and if they do, I can repel that discomfort quickly because, everybody else around me is saying yes. And I think you see that. And I will also say, maintaining all the confidentiality in the world, but I noticed with politicians that often happens, that I have maybe had the opportunity to work with, where they get into it because they really were a grassroots campaign. They were trying to make a difference. I still remember one of the first people I worked with that then started to really gain some power. And I got to be a part of watching in therapy, even as things changed. And I felt like I was almost watching somebody start trying on new ideas to see if this would work, because they liked the power and the validation and the prestige. So that is interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say too is that we tend to be people who are great at getting A pluses and have have given out our validation externally many times by the time we hit the medical system, that we've kind of lost, I don't know, that then we become easier to manipulate that way too, I think. Because we're so reliant now. We're so hooked on it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Oh, we can get an A+. I can try even harder. Let me show you. And then
And then that's maybe chasing the validation in a sense.
Yes. Yeah.
The goalpost changes too.
And then I think you add on, I think you add on the fact that we do not, let's see, how do I put this? We have a rival fallacy, where we put off, we've just learned to sacrifice. We just put off, well, when I get done with med school, it's going to be amazing. When I get done with residency, it's going to be amazing. We haven't enjoyed one bit because we're just grinding, striving. So you put that on top of, now we need all this external validation. What do you think about that, Tony? I mean, I think that it's huge.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Oh, I'm going to be an attending. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to have the house of my dreams, the marriage of my dreams. I put off being happy all this long. And then you're 40 and burn out. And like, what actually does make me happy? Like,
welcome to midlife crisis. That's right. Yeah, right. But then at that point, the expenses are probably, I can't even imagine. So I got the chills when you were saying that, because I'll be happy when. I mean, that's a huge part of the acceptance and commitment therapy model that I love. And even it's an easy read. One of my favorite books, The Confidence Gap, is that when I'm confident, I'll do the thing. But it's like I have to do the thing to get the confidence. Or, when I'll be happy when, but I need to start working on being happy now, and then the win will completely change. And that's, and man, talking out loud here, just balling this stuff. You guys are in this career where here is because I'm a big fan of going from A to B and B to C and C to D and seeing where it takes you. But is that a thing in medicine? I mean, other than changing specialties or where you work, but I mean, you're going to stay pretty much in a pretty, I don't know, narrow lane in a sense.
Yeah, I think what it is more than that is that sometimes the expectations of either whoever is our superior or even the administrators of the hospital, will be told to do something, and we may or may not get validated for doing that thing, but then we'll be told again what we're doing wrong. Like, there is so much. It's like, Tony has these episodes called Death by a Thousand Cuts.
Yeah.
And it is so much of that experience where, never mind that you just saw 30 people on your ER shift. You saved a couple people's lives. You did so much good there. Nobody ever sees that. Nobody ever comments on that. They comment on the fact that, you had a couple of people who stayed in the department too long. So it's really.
But even more than that, we do it to ourselves too. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I would code somebody, bring them back, and leave the shift like, what's the purpose of all of this? Like how did I even get there? You know what I mean? Like, this guy's just going to go out and get his blood sugar right back up to where, just the mental filtering where we also are trained. I think that makes us great docs, because who cares what's going right with your patient? Like, who cares what's going right with your patient? Like, what my job is to pick out what could potentially go wrong and seriously focus on that. But then we take it home too.
Okay,
that doesn't have to do with narcissism.
Oh, well,
maybe it does.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and this is where I think the more that content I put out there, the more I'm moving away from, narcissistic personality disorder and extreme emotional immaturity, because there really is a way that can really be worked with. And I am finding, and let me kind of go on a real quick tangent, but I think you'll see where I'm going here in a second. But I'm obsessed with the concepts of differentiation. I always knew the words, but when you really look at it, it's really about discomfort for growth. And there's a author, David Schnarch, who talks about differentiation a lot. And he's got these concepts called they're 4 points of balance. And so I just want to run this by you, because I think these have been, once I realize, okay, yes, I'm trying to alleviate my discomfort and I need to learn to sit with it, which takes some work, takes, meditation, it takes being aware, it takes a pause, all those sort of things. But then that's so that you can get to this developing a solid sense of self, which means knowing who you are without needing others to tell you, and being able to confront yourself to be a better person authentically yourself in the face of pressure from others to do something, to be somebody that you're not, learning how to self-validate rather than requiring external validation. And all these things sound like, sure, these are a bunch of words, but what's fascinating is when you start looking at really what external validation is, and as a therapist, I joke about this, I'm required to, by law, crap all over the love languages because they're not really evidence-based, but people turn to them often. So when you look at like evidence-based or external validation, those are the things like words of affirmation, physical touch, having things done for you, requiring things to change before you will. Well, you aren't doing it, or giving of yourself once the other person has done it first. Because those are ways that I'm saying, I don't like the way I feel, and I need you to make me feel better. Because if I don't know who I am, then neither one of us know how this is going to work, but it's on you. And so then when you don't do it, I get to say, you actually don't care about me. And inside I'm saying, okay, what is wrong with me? And so there's so much,
That's really what it boils down to
Okay.
is when he's saying differentiation, he means you're not dependent on other people
Yes.
to make your life meaningful and happy. You take responsibility for your own emotions. And while you can make requests for other people to, behave a certain way, you don't make demand that other people
Yes.
be a certain way.
Yeah, and I like
that
that.
fair?
That was a good way to put it. It's so good, and I think that this starts to lead into. I mean, I was going to maybe lovingly say is the medical learning institution a narcissistic entity, just in the fact that, look, I had to do all this stuff, so now you need to as well. I suffered.
1,000%.
So malignant.
Okay.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yes.
And that,
Absolutely.
and that's a hard one to break. And I've sat with, when I used to do a little bit more family therapy, I still remember one of the moments I loved the most was a dad saying something about his adult daughter who had been through a pretty abusive relationship and breakup, but now she's taking her time trying to find herself. And I'm saying, yeah, if there was ever a time right now. And I appreciated that eventually he was able to say, hey, I didn't get to do that. I grew up with a crappy home. I had to suffer. I had to struggle. And that is not a mature view of things. That's if I had to, you have to, because then that will justify
Right.
why I had to, versus the
Mhm.
I had to acceptance that happened. And now how can I change, and that's more the mature response.
Yeah. I mean, the place rioted when we cut resident work hours. The whole system
Mhm.
thought it was just going to go to somewhere in a handbasket. And guess what? It didn't. I think that's also the whole theory behind like just the most malignant M&M rounds ever, just putting somebody on stage and just basically filleting them in public. Like public humiliation is a big thing in our
Really?
medical training. Yes,
Wow.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So
Man.
M&M, Tony, is morbidity and mortality. So if somebody
Oh.
messes up in a case, they do a whole lecture about it. They
whole
present
special
the
on-
whole thing, everybody there. Yeah. It's
Shame. Public shame.
Shame.
Hundreds of people.
Public shame.
Yeah, a public humiliation,
Oh.
basically.
But it
So-
doesn't even have to be someone messed up. It's just there was a bad outcome. There was either a morbidity, someone was, or a mortality. And, sometimes I sat through those and everyone gave their best effort. Everyone
Okay,
put their
yes.
best foot forward. But it is still someone needs to own this. Who gets to be blamed? It's public shaming 101. I mean, it is. Somebody's got to pay for this, even though we went through the whole case and every single person put their best foot forward.
Which
It
then
is, like,
leads
incredible.
to so then we are taught because of that, like who wants to be the butt of that?
For
so
sure.
then there is
This makes
we
so
don't
much sense.
share with each other the
Yes.
vulnerability, because God forbid somebody takes it wrong and then you are the butt of the joke.
Yep.
or you're
we
deemed
don't-
incompetent. You're deemed
Yes.
Right.
incompetent or
There's no safety.
passed out. Yeah.
Okay,
no
this is
safety.
we're gonna have to do a whole series on this, because now I would say we're back into my dojo here of in that world, it's a narcissistic family system.
narcissistic.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you have to have a scapegoat, and then that makes me feel better,
Yes.
because at least I'm not that guy, right, guys?
Yes.
And we're all that
Yes.
until we are. And
Right.
and it's interesting too, because where I was having a little moment there is talking with another doctor I was working with for a while, and it was a long time ago, and I said, okay, but wouldn't the narcissist though be the one place you would want a surgeon? And then this was, a long time ago, and the person said, no, because they won't take ownership of something that happened, and because it was something that you did, or they didn't do it, and they're going to gaslight you through whatever that whatever happened, because and I'm maybe it's part of this, because if I don't want to take ownership of it, because somebody's going to, and they're going to get publicly humiliated, they're going to get filleted. And I think it's a bit, man, if I step back and say, all right, because I just had someone I'm working with have to go to a court case about some things. And it was really difficult because they just did the best that they could. Now it turned out to be good, which I was grateful for, but the whole system was pointing this big spotlight, and to the point where this person was incredibly worried about it not going well. And I felt like everybody did just say, well, we've offered up our sacrificial lamb and now good luck. And so now when everything went well, now they knew he could do it, but no, they didn't. Now that, now if he would have done something, if it wouldn't have gone that way, then I'm sure everybody would have said, yeah, he was pretty bad. And so we just have to have this all or nothing, bad, good, or there has to be, there has to be a victim. And so what's really unfortunate about that in a narcissistic family system is that then it's, shame will always drive somebody into isolation and then not being willing to share. And the reality is we're all human and doing our best. And so I believe, I don't have the data to back it up, but that if that was more of the mindset, then there would be far less fill in the blank, because people wouldn't feel this sense of I have to do it perfect or else I'm gonna get in trouble, because the reality is no one is perfect. So there will be things that happen, but now I can't admit that.
Dang it.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But your guys' cafeteria is good. So, I mean, that's a thing, right? No, see, I'm trying to.
Well, at least we
my
have that.
discomfort
Yes, we
with
get
some
pizza.
Yeah, right.
At least we have that.
Well, okay, even the
Coffee
at least we, right? The at least we mentality is that when people get really uncomfortable, well, I mean, but at least you make good money. I mean, but at least you, and that's like the way people get rid of their own discomfort. Well, at least you're a doctor. I mean, and I just, it's so fascinating.
We put up a healthcare hero sign. Don't you, God forbid you still be demoralized after that.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah,
I feel
Tony,
like
talk more about the shame thing. I do. I want to talk more about that shame thing, because I do think that's a huge part. And I love what you said, because we talk about Brene Brown all the time, and she's a shame researcher. And she says, I mean, shame like flourishes in the silence. And that's what we learn, is that you don't talk about it. Like we just talked about, that medical culture does not open up a safe space for vulnerability. And so that is like the trifecta there. You feel shame. You can't talk about it. It's not safe. It just multiplies in the silence, and then you're in isolation. And so, we really could, and some people end up spinning out and then taking their own lives, or leaving a family that genuinely, was there for them and loves them. But man, it is so potent. It's so potent.
Yeah. So, I work in the world of addiction a fair amount, and compulsive sexual behavior, impulse control, people that turn to porn as a coping mechanism. And that is so much driven by shame, because that shame, if we go back to if just me existing as a kid turns out to be wrong, then, and I've got a whole origin story of shame, which is we're wired as kids to then emote to get our needs met. But then over time, as we get older, then we emote and we don't get them met. As a matter of fact, we are told that all the things we were talking about earlier, but then as a kid, you are a little egotistical, narcissistic by trait, or definition kid that doesn't understand that your parents can't afford the monster truck, or you can't go on vacations all the time, or all you think about is I asked for it and you didn't give it to me, so something's wrong with me. Because what we're wired with is like I cry and you pick me up, I poop my diaper, you clean it up, and I reach for the toy and you say, oh, how cute. But then at some point, then you reach for the toy and it's like, hey, not now, enough. You already have, so all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it must be me. So when we do that as a kid, that I think that is shame, because, we got the old guilt is something I did maybe was wrong, but shame is I am wrong, I am bad. And so that's where I really feel like that origin story of shame is kind of deep in there. And so then we'll revert back to that when we feel like we're in trouble. And that's why I try to, talk about the emotions give us feelings, and our feelings for our entire lives have been told that they're bad. So we can't even trust our feelings. We're not about to let them out. And so we stuff the feelings. So then even when people start to, and that's what I love about, honestly, I love my job because you get somebody in there and they're like, I don't even know why I'm here. And then I'm just like, okay, let's just start talking. And then it's game on. Because the reason why things like talk therapy, coaching, those things work is if you're able to express yourself and somebody doesn't say, oh, whoa, really? That's what you did? Or I wouldn't have done that. Or, because that's the one where it's like, yeah, you're right. I'm bad. I did it wrong. Something's wrong with me versus and then tell me more. And then what happened? And then what was like, then we find out that, oh, I can express things and they aren't as scary. So then I'm not as bad. Turns out I'm okay. And so then, and it has such a multiplying effect because now if I'm not beating myself up and keeping things rattling around inside my head that go to the negative, now I'm a little bit more present. I'm a little bit more hopeful. And so that's just where I think that shame stuff is just it is a cancer. It just eats at you from the inside. And then if people don't open up, then it's just going to build and build. And now we go into the whole trauma response of, okay, somebody says, I don't need to go to therapy. I'm like, okay, how's your blood pressure? How's your heart rate? How's your, do you have chronic back pain? Do you have, migraines? Do you have, because your body's trying to say, I think you do. I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Well,
So part of why I think of this as a big narcissistic family system is something I learned on your podcast about human magnet syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And in medicine, if you were to you could just put two people in two camps generally. You have a lot of people who really want to do good and they're helpers and they love helping people feel better. And then you mentioned, you intimated earlier, the people who maybe want some prestige or, some position, and that's their primary motivating reason to go into it. And a lot of people who go into medicine come from families that are high demand and have high expectations. And so if you're already coming from a place where you're told that your worth is based on what your grades are or, what scholarship or what sport you play or whatever it is, that's your worth. Or you're one of these people who just loves to help people. How might it be that coming out of these family situations, you might be a setup or getting into a narcissistic system or relationship?
Well, and I think so much of it, and I love that the way you frame that too, and Amanda, you mentioned that, and the part of the altruistic person going into it for good, because sometimes I do almost forget that part just because and again, I love working with doctors because, I think that it's they don't know what they don't know, which is absolutely okay. And they're in positions where they're expected to kind of know everything. So I love the vulnerability of somebody coming in and saying, okay, I have no idea. So I think that part is amazing. But then with that said, if that altruistic person, then they're there to help. And then let's just go with the narcissistic person. They're there to get validation, prestige, or they only get their sense of self from external validation because they kind of lack that internal sense of self. Then I have this phrase I think is kind of hilarious, but I know it doesn't sound that way, but where, narcissist is almost saying, I don't really feel like anything right now. So I need another human being to interact with so that I can put them in the one down position and I can take the one up position. And then I know I'm alive, And so then who would gladly step into that? The pathologically kind person, because then, they're wired to diffuse the anger in the situation, diffuse the discomfort. And that's where sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, the pathologically kind, trying to get out of that trauma bond, out of that human magnet syndrome, there will be this gap that is left if they try to just not react or not fix or not make up the difference in whatever the relationship is missing. And then here's the unfortunate part. The narcissist, what do they do with discomfort? I don't want any part of it. So I'm going to turn to someone else if you won't engage with me so that I can make you feel bad. So then I'm good. But then the pathologically kind person, that discomfort grows and grows and grows until finally they're like, okay, fine. I'm sorry, okay, I'll do it. But this is the last time. And what I love about the last time concept is that's, now I go back to childhood and where the little kid is wanting candy and then they're crying and crying and crying. And then the parent, finally, they've had enough. So what do they do to get rid of their discomfort? That's that part where they're like, okay, this one time. And so then they feel relief that gets rid of their discomfort. They give the candy and the kid eats the candy, period. They didn't hear the this is the last time part. So they just got the reinforcement. Then the pathologically kind person, now just trained the kid that, okay, just keep it up and I'll eventually give in. So that pathologically kind person, even when they try to put up a boundary, then I would say the boundary is a challenge to the emotionally immature narcissistic person. It's like, oh, that's adorable, that boundary.
Mhm.
I can get that. I can get through that one. And I know I've kind of took it in a little bit of a different direction there. I don't know if that even answered the question, but
No, it totally does. I mean, because I think many of our listeners can identify as the pathologically kind.
yeah.
We
Well,
do.
because they're
It's
listening. I
interesting.
mean, even,
Yeah.
because that's the part where it's like,
Trying
I
to,
love when,
yeah.
yeah. And I love when somebody will, so many of the people that I'm interacting with will email me and say, okay, I heard this stuff and I did lose my stuff on my spouse. I mean, am I the narcissist? And my always number one rule is if you're asking yourself, the answer is no. But it's not that if you just heard this and you're like, am I? No? Cool. No. But if you're the one that's listening to podcasts and trying to figure this out and how can I show up different? And man, I did get angry, and you are so not the narcissist. You're the pathologically kind person that's trying to continually try to figure out how you can help that person feel better. And that's the part where it's like, it's kind of like reinforcing the pattern of behavior, which is, I feel so bad saying that to the pathologically
No,
kind
it
person.
absolutely true, because neither the narcissist nor pathologically kind have boundaries.
Yeah.
They don't. It's like you said, they are not differentiated. They're enmeshed, and they just are stuck together.
And when can I tell you I did an episode a little while ago where I don't know why this hit me, but I was looking more at boundaries. And because I always say, in my 5 rules of a narcissism interacting with a narcissistic person entity, it's that raise your baseline, self-care, get your PhD in gaslighting. Thank you very much. Get out of unproductive conversations, set boundaries, know that the boundary is a challenge. And then I'll come back to that. And you'll never give that person the aha moment or the epiphany. But it's so hard to not want to give that person the aha moment or the epiphany because you're a nice person. But I start looking at the boundaries and I realized, so many of the pathologically kind people are actually just giving ultimatums. It's like, hey, can you not do that? And then that's like saying, hey, can you not think of a white polar bear on a green bike right now? Because the narcissist like thinking about it right now, but the boundary is if you say this, then I will leave. And that is so hard to ask the kind person to do.
Yes, but it's essential to your survival, really. But you can't go on like this indefinitely.
Yeah.
We have enough questions for like a whole other podcast still. So how do you guys want to do that? Do you want to save this? And Tony, you want to talk to us about like how you can, like how people can work with you. Could you come back in a few months and
I'll
do
come
the
back
rest?
I have a little more time right now. If I imagine you might edit this out right now, that'd be good.
Yes,
I was gonna
I'll
say
edit all that out.
that my move ended up freeing up some time, which is okay, I guess, but it feels awkward. So yeah.
But we'll fill it with another podcast.
Okay, well, if I I can look on your scheduling calendar and I can go ahead and I'll just do that if that makes sense, and I'll do it next week or something if you have availability. Because
So why don't we like do this one last question, like how might narcissists be attracted to medicine, and then we'll say we're ending. We're gonna
here. I'm gonna
text
my
continue.
I'm gonna text my 3 o'clock real quick because he's super cool, and I tell him worst case it might be a minute later. Okay, and then that way I won't be rushing.
All right, Tony, tell us, how might narcissists be attracted to medicine as a career?
Well, okay, and I've thought about this a lot, even to the point where I almost started asking my buddy ChatGPT about it. But I thought, okay, I want to really, what are my thoughts on this first? And so I did jot down some notes because in my mind it seems like, well, it seems obvious, but then I've never really written down or kind of thought through these things because. And I would love your opinions on this. So I got 6 things I wrote down. One of them is I was looking at just the concept of the high stress environment. I mean, these life and death decisions, and there's a lot of pressure. And I think it can really start to, maybe even push emotional limits and bring out these narcissistic traits, because then somebody is expected, and I like what you were saying earlier, to maintain their calm or their self-esteem under pressure. So then, I feel like that might put someone on edge. So any type of criticism then is going to be met as you think you're smarter than me. You think I'm doing it wrong. So then I will lash out quickly to to make sure that you understand that I am the one in charge or whatever that would look like. So there's a part of me that wondered that, and that's not my best argument yet. And I think, well, we touched on a few of these too. I think the part about the validation piece, and because we get our sense of self from external validation. So if from a very young age, you were expected to go into medicine, your family's in medicine, you are going to be the doctor, and then you're being told continually that you are special. I mean, that's got to play a role into it, because then, narcissists love this concept of high status. So then I am of high status. So then I'm not going to hang out with kids that are not, they don't want to be doctors. And then if I tell my parent that, my parent's like, that's right, champ, then I'm getting that validation from that too. So I think that some of that can be maybe play a role into it. And I often wonder about the concept of power dynamics, because if there's a clear pecking order, then I think it probably feeds that need for the external validation to give you a sense of self. So I feel better when I know that I am at the top of the pecking order, because if we really go back to the emotionally immature narcissist lack a real sense of self, which can sound crazy because somebody listening says I'm a doctor, but do I have the capacity to have empathy and listen to other people's experiences? Do I have a high toleration for distress? Can I hear other people? Because that's where the growth comes. But if I am just a doctor and I know better, then that really is maybe not as solid of a sense of self, which I think is really interesting. And then we touched on a lot of these things too, because I think that the selection and training process, so much of this, I think, just goes back to that desire to be recognized, to be noticed, to know that you matter, because it sounds like the medical training really is about handling a lot of tough decisions, tough situations I wasn't even aware of. And so do you have to learn to almost detach yourself from the emotional side, which
100%.
Yes. Right? I haven't thought about that too. You guys were saying that earlier.
Oh yeah. And that's validated. Like that is, the less emotions, the better.
It leads to our sickness a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So that one's one of those where I can throw in the old kind of breaks my heart, because then the whole, maybe that the bedside manner, the empathy, the people that get into it for the right reasons. And then all of a sudden I have to knock that out of me. I can't show that. That would be tough. And that's where I go back to today's theme for me, differentiation, where it's learning to manage my reactivity, learning to know that I need, this is an opportunity to show me who I really am, but it doesn't happen overnight, becoming differentiated. But then if somebody is saying, I can't believe you did that and all this stuff, that's where I love working with somebody where, my number one answer when somebody says, why did you do that? The answer is, well, let's start from a place of I did, because this is the first time that I've ever been me in that situation. And that was the reaction I made. So that's a thing. Now, if I'm in a healthy, safe relationship, now we can look at it together, maybe, kind of step back and say, let's look at all the things that were going on there. But it's a whole lot easier to just say, I guess, because I suck. Is that what you're looking for? Because that is not who I am. I don't think I am, but maybe I am. So that whole concept is flawed. And that one really drives me crazy. Who am I supposed to be right now versus every interaction I'm learning that actually I'm okay. That's a you issue. And you can't say that out loud.
Right.
That doesn't go over very well. But one of the concepts of differentiation that I didn't spend much time on, though, is learning to manage your reactivity. And there's two versions of that. One is learning to not be overly reactive, because that's trying to control through anger or, but there's also the withdrawal, the avoidance, where then I'm not going to say a thing because I don't want to get in trouble. Because differentiation is being able to, because since I'm not requiring that person to tell me I'm okay and I know who I am, then I'm able to then sit with that discomfort and then express hey, here was what I was thinking. Here's where I was at. Because that's where I start thinking that the gaslighting, emotional immaturity in conversations occur. But if I think I can't have that conversation with somebody because they're in a one-up position, but if I'm grounded and differentiated and I have the tools and I know that I'm just a human doing this okay, then I'm like, well, man, tell me more. What were you saying? Well, you can't do that, and that's where I feel like my beloved 4 pillars come into play, where I want to understand. Tell me more. Well, I told you did it bad. I hear you. Help me understand. Tell me more. It's like, no, you're just supposed to get mad at me now so I can tell you you're bad. And then I'm done. And then you feel bad. And that's the way it works. So there's not a lot of growth there, I don't think. I don't know if I gave enough of those. I mean, I love that we kind of got to those while we were talking. And then the reward structure, I think, we talked about all these where, hey, at least though you make a bunch of money. So
Yeah. It's worth it at the end. I promise. Yeah. My 13-year-old son, he tells me, he educated me that sometimes it's an issue, not an ish me. So now I have that in my.
Whoa, that's good.
Right.
Oh,
He
man.
like dropped that bomb right before we went to bed. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. It's an issue, not
Okay.
ish me. Okay.
I know. I want to jokingly say, okay, cut that part out and let me say it. You know what I always say, Kendra? It's, what do I say again? It's an issue, not an ish me. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's good.
Perfect.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Straight
It's the
from
wisdom
Donovan
from a
Morrison.
junior higher. It's the wisdom from
Yeah.
a junior higher.
Oh,
Junior higher that watches lots of YouTube shorts, so I'm sure.
Tony, tell us how people can work with you. We're going to be doing to be continued.
yeah.
But we want to know how do people work with you?
Well, so you know what's interesting is when I made this move, I moved for the first time in my life, 30 years in California, moved to Arizona, kept a location in California, opened a practice in Arizona. But I'm an old man now. And so I realized that I love what I do, but I kind of almost feel like I can really help people. And I find myself wanting to say right now, I'm not going to try to beg somebody that they need to believe me. I've got, 800 episodes of podcasts out there, thousands of hours of content, and everything I'm talking about from being differentiated. I'm a recovering emotionally immature person, ADHD, but the fun kind, growing up needing validation and realizing, okay, so there's that part of me that I just am in a position now where I want to work with, high-driven people who are willing to say, okay, maybe things aren't the best and I don't know what I don't know. So fine, I will come visit with you, because I think I got the therapist part of me and I've got the a little bit of the coaching vibe too. So now I can tell you what I really think you need to do. And then when you don't do it, I get to say, tell me more about that. And I can flash my credentials at that. So it's funny as we're talking about this, because I've noticed myself working more and more with the doctor, with the attorney, with the politician, with the CEO. And I think that everyone needs a place where they can really express themselves. So some of the sessions we have are somebody telling me all about, I can tell you so many funny things about, do you know how difficult it is when you get your second corporate jet and then you can't even access it when you want to impulsively do something on the weekend? Can you even imagine?
Exhausting. I know.
Right,
I hate
exactly. But I love the fact that this person was really struggling with this, and they were saying, nobody wants to hear this. And I'm saying, I will. I mean, because we're all trying our best. First time we're in these situations. And so that's why I love this concept. So that is a long-winded way to say, I'm in a position right now where I am, I want to say I am taking people who are interested in working hard to then work with me. And so if there's anybody listening here and anything resonated, then please reach out to me. And you will definitely have to mention that you heard me here, because then you will have been vetted by you guys, because I'm still pretty picky. That's the old man of me.
You guys, this is a narrow window of opportunity.
I know. I've never actually. Can I tell you, this is the ego check as well. I've never put out there that I'm looking for clients, because I don't. Now, as Tony sounds narcissistic, because I don't need to. No, but it's really funny, because I've never really done this, because there's a part of me that feels like, I don't know, that I've got the people that reach out and I've got a wait list and stuff, but I'm just at the point now where it's like, I really want to work with people that are saying, I'm in, let's do this. So if you are one of those, let's do this. It'd be fun. Yeah.
Should they go to your website, or what do you want us to put on the show notes?
Email me directly. Yeah. And I think that would be an amazing thing. But if they don't mention the show, then my assistant will answer it. So
you get slashed off the list.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But I really appreciate, I learned from you guys today about more of that whole narcissistic family system of medicine. And that makes so much sense. And now I'll create more content around that, because that really resonated.
Yay.
So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So you heard it here. When we talk to Tony, he just creates more content. So you better stay tuned.
That's right.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Tony, so
It's always
much.
fun. Thanks a lot.
It's been a blast. This has been the golden hour, guys. If you didn't catch it, you just need to put it on repeat, because I think you could probably listen a cool 10, 12 times and still get some nuggets. So put it on repeat, folks.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
I'll see you
you.
again soon.
See
you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. And one last thought. Guys, if any of this resonates with you, check out Tony's podcast. But also, please do us a favor and just go and give us a little 5-star review and our 5-star rating and leave us a review. It really does help other doctors find our podcast. And we have so many people listening, and a very, very small percentage of you guys have left reviews. Please do us that favor. It would mean so much to us, and it would help us help other people too. So thanks for doing that.
Yes, and we are so excited you joined us today, and we've launched our new course, Wellness 911. So go to our website, www.thewholephysician.com, to get more information. We take demoralized doctors from fried to fantastic with our easy and evidence-based Wellness 911 program. So until next time, you are whole, you are a gift to medicine, and the work you do matters.
All right.